I wouldn't know.
Okay. Do
I
you have
don't
conversations
remember.
with God?
I have conversations with God.
Okay. And has God told you not to immunize?
In my conversations with God, you're literally taking a conversation with God as Him telling me. Mr. Cohen,
okay,
you
then
don't
explain it to me.
understand
Then
my
explain
belief
it.
system. This is
Well,
extremely insensitive and it's extremely intrusive.
Yeah, well, I agree.
This is
If you're going to inquire as to something as personal as religious belief and you ask a question like that, you're going to have to let the person respond.
I didn't tell her not to respond. I'm letting her respond.
Well, I thought you went back with another question.
No, we're still on the same question, and that was
these
whether...
are questions of an extremely these are extremely insensitive questions. These are delving into the spiritual home of an individual, and that individual is me.
You're right
and
about
the New York
that.
State Education Department guidelines discourages you specifically, expressly in their guidelines that you are not to inquire, you are to exercise great care and extreme sensitivity into inquiring into the nature of a person's beliefs. This is insulting to me that I have to explain a belief. This is mortally insulting and upsetting to me.
And I'm sorry.
This is violating a practice of my freedom of religion, Mr. Cohen. I have to explain my religious beliefs that don't adhere to logic, perhaps, or your path of logic. I don't believe many things in the world do adhere to logic.
In the conversations you have had with God, and I don't mean to be making light of the subject at all. Please don't get the impression that I am. But if you've had conversations with God, has God told you in some way, shape, or form that you shouldn't be
Mr. Cohen,
immunizing
I
your child?
just addressed this question. Telling me is literally translating my conversations with God. Conversations with God can be translated in so many different ways. It can be in a feeling. It can be a spiritual force that a person welcomes into their soul. An actual conversation with God. You're translating it as if He is standing across from me, speaking to me. This is not how... Sometimes in religion, speech isn't literally translated. When you're talking about the spirituality and the religious beliefs, the belief system of a person, sometimes it is not translated so literally as an actual talking, simply because it's a conversation. That conversation can mean so many different things. It's not an actual face-to-face like we're having right now, or rather I would call this an interrogation or a cross-examination.
Well, then tell me, then
I can't
tell
explain
me what it is.
The conversations that I have with my God, like I just explained before, is more of a welcoming of His Spirit. It's more of a feeling. It's more of I'm an articulate and eloquent person. I was an English major. I was a journalism major. To describe my beliefs so literally, so you can understand them, is very challenging for me. It really is very challenging. I would figure it would be challenging for a lot of people to explain a feeling. This is not a geometry equation. This is not a dictionary definition. This is a feeling. This is a belief.
So is it a, and again,
And Mr. Cohen, you are coming very close to insulting me and not exercising extreme care and great sensitivity. This is borderline very insulting to me. Your demeanor is insulting. You're asking me to literally translate a feeling that I have. You're invading my spiritual home. And I, for the record, absolutely feel that this is inappropriate.
Okay, and I'm sorry you feel that way.
If you truly do apologize, then back off. Get on to something else. Ask me the names of my children, which is what you asked in the last interview, and you also set the groundwork in the last interview by telling me who makes the decision, what report you make up, and all that other sort of thing. This time, you delved completely into my spiritual home. That to me is very insulting, and you won't get off of it.
Okay.
You won't stop asking about this.
That's correct.
It's relentless. Well, it's very upsetting to me, as it was very upsetting in court, to be all by myself, facing two attorneys, trying to explain my religious beliefs. This is becoming insulting to me. I'm becoming upset.
I'm sorry.
And I'm asking you to back off.
No, I won't back off.
You're refusing to back off?
Yeah,
You're
I have to
refusing
continue to
exercise extreme
I am
sensitivity and great care?
I am trying to be as sensitive as I can, and I truly apologize if you think I'm delving and being too intrusive.
If you are truly repentant,
but that's the job that I have to do. But that was the question. If you believe God is on your side, does that mean He's not on the side, or can He be on the side of somebody who believes in immunization?
I know my deepest, most spiritual beliefs. I don't know the belief systems of others,
And nor do we control God.
And nor do we, yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't know.
You also said that you're Catholic and that you follow the Catholic religion. And my question to you is, does the Catholic religion, as far as you know, preclude immunizations? Does it permit immunizations? Or does it leave it up to the individual?
I believe you would have to reserve that question for the leaders of the Catholic Church. As was answered in our first interview
And we
2
also
years
think
ago.
it's an inappropriate question.
Well, do you know what the Catholic religion says about
It's an
it?
inappropriate question.
It's an inappropriate question.
That means you're refusing to answer?
No, it doesn't, it means we reject the question.
Well, well, if you reject the question, you're obviously not answering. So if you don't want to answer
You
it,
can interpret it any way you
Mr.
want.
Cohen, do you understand that it doesn't have to be a tenet of a particular religion?
Ms. Palmer, I
Do you
think I know
realize
the
that?
law pretty well.
Oh, you do? Okay. Does Mrs. Haskey? Because Mrs. Haskey is actually
I do.
the ultimately, does you know PHL 2164? Have you
Don't
read
even
it?
answer the question. She's not here to answer your questions. You're here to answer our questions, with all due respect. You say in your letter that vaccinations represent fear, anxiety, and mistrust in God. And my question to you is that if God gave man the wherewithal to create vaccinations, which has as their purpose to combat disease, then why would using them represent a
May I interject?
mistrust in God?
May I interject?
Do me a favor, please.
Yeah.
If you want to interject, can you please have the courtesy of waiting for my question to finish so that the tape can get it? I'd appreciate that.
Sure, I really don't think I was rude. Maybe I jumped the gun by a few words.
Thank you.
So,
While I put my
Let
okay.
me, we object, and the reason we object is that question does not go to the sincerity of Thomas' beliefs as they've articulated. It challenges the foundation of their belief. That is highly inappropriate, an intrusion on their beliefs, so we object to that question.
Let me explain to you my understanding of the law, and I've been doing this for a fair amount of time, is that there are two issues here. One is whether the individual truly holds religious beliefs, number one, and number two, whether those beliefs are sincerely and genuinely held. You could espouse a religious belief, and this has nothing to do with your clients today, but you could espouse something that's nobody can question as a religious belief. Whether it's sincerely held or not is something that may be subject to challenge, whether they're sincerely held. And you could espouse certain beliefs which by their very nature somebody could challenge as not being religious beliefs, although you may hold them sincerely. Having said that, I need to ask the question, which is, and I'll ask it again, and if your clients don't want to answer it, then I can't force them to answer it. You say in your letter that vaccinations represent fear, anxiety, and mistrust in God. And if God gave man the wherewithal to create vaccinations, which purpose is to combat disease, then why would using them represent a mistrust in God?
While I put my trust in God to heal diseases, I also trust the judgment that he has given me to help a body in crisis.
I'm not asking you about your use of medication. You were fairly clear in what you stated. I'm not asking about that. You say that vaccinations represent fear, anxiety, and mistrust in God. And what I don't understand, what I'm trying to understand about that, is that, again, if God gave man the wherewithal to create these immunization agents, and the purpose of those is to combat disease, then why would using them, if God gave man the wherewithal to create them, why would using them represent a mistrust in God?
how do you know God gave the wherewithal to create immunizations?
How do you know
Maybe
the
the
devil
devil
did?
did.
Okay,
You're asking us to
that-
understand what
maybe-
God's plan is, and we don't understand God's
Hold on,
plan.
hold on.
Taking what you explained earlier, is your question directed to whether or not that's a valid religious belief? Or is it directed to...
I'm asking her, I'm asking them to reconcile that and maybe their answer is, we don't know that God gave, that God gave man the wherewithal. If their answer is maybe the devil did, then I accept that answer.
You're asking them to reconcile the two statements?
Yes.
But that assumes that religion always reconciles conflicting statements and beliefs. It's
Sometimes
not
it
a
does,
belief.
sometimes it doesn't.
It's not a belief, so I don't see how the question can even be answered.
Okay.
If we want to get into a philosophical discussion about religion,
Well,
that's one thing.
Well, oftentimes we do in these settings.
Well, I'm not sure that's appropriate.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
you could advise your client.
Sometimes beliefs
Could
are
advise your client accordingly.
ineffable, as they are abstract. Sometimes they are difficult to describe and explain, though I think I've done a very good job describing my religious beliefs and how they tie into refusing vaccines in my letter.
Okay. Again, why is using an immunization agent, which, and I'm assuming that God gave man the wherewithal to create it. Now, if you don't
that's your
accept,
assumption.
okay, well,
That's
if you
not my
don't,
assumption.
well, where do you think it came from?
I think, again, you're
Why does that tie in?
espousing a view, I don't know whether you personally hold it or not, it's irrelevant, but you're espousing a view that religion would support vaccination.
No, I'm not.
Well, you
I'm not espousing any particular religious belief. I'm simply questioning what they say here. And vaccinations represent fear, anxiety, and mistrust in God. And I thought, maybe I'm wrong, that God put us here and gave man the ability to think and to create. And man obviously was able to create immunization.
But that's your
Maybe
belief,
you
that's
are
not
wrong.
ours.
Maybe you are
That's
wrong.
not
And
ours.
perhaps the
So you
answer
can ask
can
your
be
question
found in
to
God's
yourself.
mysterious
And
plan.
I think the point is maybe, yes, someone may believe that and take that view. The Pondits don't subscribe to that view.
Well, okay, then
They
where
subscribe to
did the
view that
immunizations come from? If God didn't give man, if you're saying that God did not give man the wherewithal to create
Why do
immunizations,
they have to answer that question?
well,
How
because
do they know?
Where do
well, that's what I'm
immunizations
well,
come from?
well, you said that
You're asking, no,
either
that's
God gave
That's an
man,
epistemological question.
Either-
They don't know. No one knows where that came from.
either God gave man the wherewithal to create
Ridiculous question.
immunizations, as he gave man the wherewithal to create medications, or to create whatever man does create. Either God gave man that, or somebody else did, or some other entity
Cohen,
These are
did.
questions that
Mr.
can't
Cohen.
be answered. I
That
mean,
can't be answered.
what are we
Sometimes
doing here?
religious
That
beliefs
could be-
are inexplainable. As a matter of fact, the more abstract you get with concepts, like I was saying before, the more difficult it is to describe, reconcile, or create a path of logic around. God's plan adheres to no logic that any mortal man can
The point
understand,
is-
in my opinion.
Well,
They
what is
have
God's plan as far as you're concerned?
Mr. Cohen, I don't know what God's plan is. I'm waiting to find out, and upon my death, I will find out.
And why, in your opinion, do vaccinations represent a mistrust in God?
God gave me a healthy body to inject disease. Okay, let me see here.
Just for the record,
It is-
you're referring to your letter.
I'm referring to my letter right now.
Right.
It is worthwhile to point out, and I'm reading from page, let's see, remember the pages.
Can you just tell me without
Page
reading from your
3.
letter?
No, I'd like to read because one of my objections to this whole proceeding is that I covered each and every point in the letter that I took an effort to write out to you. So there would be no questions and there would be no need to sit here and spend time interviewing me or talking about my religious beliefs. It is also worthwhile to point out that the significant
Well, I'm
difference
sorry, where are you reading
between
from?
the third page, I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs down. It's worthwhile to point out the significant difference between injecting a live or dead disease into a healthy body to prevent disease and helping a body in crisis with medicine and intervention. While I do not support the former, I believe it is inviting disease into the soul. I would consider the latter after adequate soul searching within my conscience and conversations with my God. Helping a body in crisis and violating a healthy body and soul with disease are two very different actions, rooted in different spiritual motivations. Now, whether or not you understand that, that is my beliefs, that is part of my belief system.
Except
If you don't understand it, Mr. Cohen, please don't ask me any
Yeah.
more questions.
I didn't ask you what the difference is, or why you would subscribe to providing medication for a healthy child as opposed to immunization. Providing medication to a sick child as opposed to immunization for a healthy child. I didn't ask that. That wasn't my question to you. My question was very simple, which was, why do you believe vaccinations represent a mistrust in God? It has nothing to do with providing medication to a child who's sick. It has to do with the statement that you made one page before that, which was that vaccinations represent fear, anxiety, and mistrust in God. And my simple question is, why do you believe vaccinations represent a mistrust in God?
Mankind states that if we do not vaccinate our child, he may become sick and die. However, I believe that God forgives all sins and heals all diseases. That is scripture directly out of the Bible, and that is what I believe.
Do you believe it's a sin to immunize your child?
I believe it is a sin. It is a sin against my conscience.
Okay.
In my opinion, in my spiritual home, it is a sin against my conscience to vaccinate my child.